Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. Okay, gents, it is that time. It's time for an album review. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from London 5-piece Green Lung. The band's new album Black Harvest will be released on October 22nd via Svart Records. So, we played these guys on our podcast a while back, and I must admit, I was quite excited to hear the rest of this release. I really enjoyed that single. They've had a fairly kind of decent start to their career, to be honest. After releasing their debut Woodland Rights back in 2019, it was really well received by critics, and it was released independently, whereas with Black Harvest they've decided to stay true to their roots and sign with the Finnish audio wizards at Svart Records.
That's a good choice. We love Svart Records.
We do.
They're doing a lot of good stuff, a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. But they've got a lot of that kind of doomy sound on their label, so this band fit right in there.
Like a glove.
This album was recorded at Giant Wafer Studios in rural Mid Wales.
That's a Welsh name, isn't it?
It was recorded over the course of 2 weeks with long-time producer Wayne Adams and mastered by John Davis at Metropolis. Metropolis.
Where Superman lives.
All samples were sourced from the local countryside and from instruments found in the studio, including.
Going to say in the countryside. They nicked them from touring bands that were part of that. Mine, I'll have that. We'll play it on the album.
That's not a drum. That's a tortoise.
Found in the studio, including the haunting opening, the vocal of The Harrowing, which was recorded on a whim after the band broke into the local church.
This is what I mean, like thieves.
The organ can be heard creaking in the background. The album was recorded in late autumn, and the seasonal atmosphere seeped into the music, which is redolent of mists, falling leaves, and the crumbling glory of the magnificent 7 cemeteries of London, the city the band call home.
Also, if you stick your nose over the top of it, you'll get gooseberries, raspberries, and a hint of ginger. I like. You know what's refreshing about that, Dave?
What's that?
Not one mention of COVID.
Right.
No, not at all.
Thank fuck. A press release without COVID in it.
No COVID. COVID free. This press release has been vaccinated, and there is no COVID here. I can see why. I can see why this band had so much attention from that 2019 release. They had multiple label offers after that album came out. They opted to go with Svart, which was a great idea because it fits their sound. But in my opinion, I think this album is going to attract even more attention to this band. I think, like, laying my cards on the table here, I think they've leveled up on Black Harvest.
I agree.
And in more ways than one. Firstly, songwriting. It's only been 2 years since Woodland Rights, but going on the quality of the songs here, it feels like they have really put in the work over those 2 years. Woodland Rights I really enjoyed. I didn't think it was completely consistent overall. I had, tracks that I really liked and others that maybe didn't grab me so much. This, on the other hand, is, as I would usually say, banger central on Black Harvest. They've kind of knocked it out of the park here. I think, like, starting at the beginning, The Harrowing, great intro track, does exactly what it's supposed to by kind of building the intensity through the haunting vocals, the kind of droning organ I mentioned, before bringing in the whole band just to kind of get you hyped up with a lot of kind of almost a kind of classic kind of rock vibes. And then it's kind of down to business, and they hit you with Old Gods, which is just like riffy and hook laden as fuck. I'm going to say it. I'll say it out loud, and I know you're going to ridicule me here, but it had a Spirit Adrift meets Ghost type feel to it in that track.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
We're bringing he brought in Ghost early, like a
Let's just
lot
get it out of the
earlier
way.
in this review than I was expecting here, Kyle. So
Yeah.
I want to see the mental gymnastics here, because this is very, very, very Ghost, right? Not like in the way that you would say, oh, well, they're just kind of cashing in on the Ghost sound.
Yeah.
Not at all. You can still hear the bands they're influenced by,
Yeah,
but
It's
predominantly on this album there is a heavier ghosty vibe.
there is
Ghosty vibe.
Ghosty vibe, yeah. There is, but for me, it's not nearly as theatrical as Ghost, which is where
You're right.
and that's where I kind of
theatrics,
back off from Ghost. You know, I'm not really into that whole theatrical side of the band.
Right.
There is
No, is that what it is?
That's what it's nothing to do with the organ. Nothing to do with the organ.
It is partly to do with the organ, but again, theatrical. Ghosts sound like fucking an episode of Scooby Doo, whereas this I think is used. And
man, I would watch the shit out of that episode of Scooby Doo.
Ghost with Scooby-Doo.
I wouldn't it was the old fisherman. No, it's not. It's Papa Apparatus in the third.
No, it's not. It's Tobias Ford.
Yeah.
There's two masks because it's
Yeah,
Ghost.
No, it's not. It's a lost it from band members trying to get their money back. Let's reel that in. No, like there is like, you know what the big difference between like a band like Ghost and a band like Green Lung are, without you hitting it with a sarcastic comment, David Buchanan, is the riffs. The riffs are the big difference.
oh yeah,
This owes a lot more to, I would argue, owes a lot more to kind of the traditions of British metal than it does to anything else. Whereas, like, to me, what Ghost do really well is they mix that kind of Scandinavian sound with the American 70s rock sound.
Yeah.
And that's where they kind of come in. But like when you listen to one of the false equivalencies we heard earlier on from people talking about this was, and I hated this term because I don't like the band, where people comparing it has an Iron Maiden-y feel. No, it doesn't.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that.
What the
And
fuck?
I'll tell you what it is. I think there's a song on here which reference, and this is where I show the geek cards getting put down here. There's a reference to The Devil a Daughter in here in the lyrics, which is an old Hammer horror film which is based on a Dennis Wheatley novel of the same name. It's just throwing shit out here, just throwing it against the wall. Who was an author of black magic and occultist novels, like kind of mystery horror novels, but he'd spent time with Aleister Crowley, so he like actually knew the inner workings of how to perform magic rites. It's an infamously bad film. It stars Christopher Lee. It has one of the greatest endings ever, where like a spectral spirit is like hit with a stone, and that's the end of the movie. You're like, oh, we could have just killed him by throwing a stone at him. Amazing. But like, I get the feeling that those sort of lyrics are where people, plus the guy's naturally higher range vocal, I think are where people are doing that. The guitar work couldn't be any fucking different. In fact, the rest of the band couldn't sound any different to an Iron Maiden if they fucking tried. And that's to their credit. If anything, modern comparisons to me kind of felt like there's whole swaths of Orange Goblin in this. In the best possible way. Like a really kind of like a retro Orange Goblin with some sort of kind of really, really cool, gnarly 70s occultist organ in there. And like the production as well. I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but the production as well. All this to me is what makes Green Lung really fucking special. And you were talking about them leveling up. The leveling up isn't just in the songwriting, it's the whole fucking package. The whole sound, everything here. It's not just that, well, they're better songwriters on this album. Well, they are. But then you're diminishing all the other stuff that goes into here to do with clever choice of production, song structure. They appear to just be more comfortable to let songs hang out a bit longer, and that's to their benefit. So now you can go back to tell me specifically about why Ghosts sound like Scooby-Doo.
I'm not talking about Ghost again. So Old Gods, I think they absolutely hooked me in on that track. You know, it's a great kind of driving riff, lots of really nice vocal harmonies, and there's a bit of organ in there, but it's really tastefully used. It gives it that kind of retro vibe, and the hits just keep on coming. You know, that start of that album going into Leaders of the Blind, into Reaper's Scythe, into Graveyard Sun, all brimming with like catchy lyrics, massive choruses, which is something I think they have vastly improved on since the
Yes.
last album. Nearly like every track has a vocal melody that will get stuck in your head.
Memorable. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's what, comparing it to bands that we're not going to allow to mention again on this thing, is that's what you need.
Yeah.
Like you're purposely setting, like, as a band, they're purposely, through the style of music they're playing, from the way they orchestrate the songs and the production, you are weirdly dating your album
Yeah.
in a time period which isn't yours, which a lot of modern fans might not necessarily want to listen to. There's a whole, don't know if Kyle's aware of this, but there's a whole series of bands just now that like really modern productions where drum samples are used and, you know, guitars are time aligned. You know, like all this stuff that's happening just now. But there's a reason why songs are catered to that market. It's to get people interested in that. They're fighting kind of against that. We're going there like a really organic, kind of earthy. The way you described it, like the captured sounds of the countryside, all this sort of stuff that they're going for, which would be kind of off-putting to a certain demographic if the songs weren't all so fucking catchy. Like, you hum them after you've listened to them. It's impossible not to, all the way through it. And that, to me, that's how you hook people in, regardless whether or not you're a fan of this particular genre of music. Does it fuck, Dave? Yes,
it fucks. Yeah, it does. And they did have like, it's not just like this album's came along and they've got all these hooks. They had them on previous album, but they weren't nearly as kind of potent as they are on this one.
Hooky.
Yeah, absolutely. Tracks like Reaper's Scythe, you know, I thought a really nice kind of change in tempo, and then I loved how Graveyard Sun started to play with more kind of dynamics, you know, adding in some kind of quieter moments with the acoustic guitar, a bit of piano. There's also more focus on the organ and keys, which I think works especially well. You know, as we're getting towards the kind of middle of the album, it creates that almost like a kind of shift in tone to something almost a bit folkier, you know, and the intensity as well kind of slightly eases off. So it doesn't feel like you're just getting hit with like power track after power track. They really flow well into each other. And I think that change dynamically is really needed in the middle of that album. If I have any kind of criticism, I didn't see the need for the title track. If I'm honest, I felt like Graveyard Sun was enough of a shift to give you, you know, that kind of feeling of a kind of almost like a bit of a break. So the title track kind of interlude was, I don't know, it felt a little bit pointless to me, if I'm honest. But right after that, though, they're into Upon the Altar, which, you know, comes in like crashing, all guns blazing, turns the heat up on the album again. Again, really nice kind of guitar harmonies on that one. Very Queen in places, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe not the kind of highest point vocally on that one. The melody was okay, but maybe not as like instantly like effective as some of the earlier tracks. But it was also like the first time I felt like they maybe started to started to reuse a few kind of ideas rhythmically. Towards the end of the album, we're starting to recognise like, oh, that kind of sounded like something from it earlier. Just bits that felt a bit kind of familiar, like I'd already heard it. But the tempo and the kind of like the almost like traditional metal vibes on like You Bear the Mark, it kind of broke that feeling for me, and it was kind of back to like the big riffs and the big choruses once again. I loved the kind of doomier kind of riffs on Doomsayer.
It's a great name for a song as well.
100%. And then the closing track is where I thought they might go something a bit more like emotional and kind of heartfelt. You know, it's still has the big moments in it where they let rip, but I felt like the kind of verses felt more kind of profound on that one, which was a nice ending to the album. I think like for me, like it's not like anything groundbreaking style wise, but I'm not going to knock them for that because that's their style. They're going for a very kind of vintage sound. They're not trying to be like revolutionary. They want to just write really great songs, and I believe they've done that with this album. It's a really kind of feel good type album, to be honest. It's very, as you said, very organic, very warm. The production does have a bit of a kind of retro vibe, but at the same time it still sounds huge. Probably a little bit more kind of crisp and a bit more shine overall than the last album, but I kind of like that. It's not a perfect album. I think there's a couple of areas of the album that, as I said, comes a little bit repetitive, and some ideas start to become a little bit overused. And I do think that the first half of the album is stronger than the second, but it's just a kind of personal thing. I think, and I would have took it that title track. I just didn't see the point of that kind of interlude in the middle. But that aside, I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the single, so I kind of roughly had an idea what I was going into, and I definitely enjoyed the rest of the album. What about you guys? Kyle, what did you think of this?
Me?
You gave me the head shake, so you said something that he disagreed with.
All right.
You fucking mean the back half of this album is worse than the front? What?
Not worse.
This
I never said
album
worse.
is all the way through, head to toe, fucking incredible. If this isn't my album of the year at the end, I don't know what the hell.
You've said
I'm not
that
kidding.
about 6 times this year. You're not allowed
I
to use it
have
again.
not.
How many
Maybe
5 stars are you giving it?
How many stars am I giving this?
Is this your first 5 stars?
Everyone, Dave.
First
Like
one, yeah.
Sweeties.
First out of what, 7?
I think the first review you did this year, you gave it 5 stars.
It's a good album. Oh no, this album is fucking incredible.
Why do you love it? Tell me.
I remember the single. I remember thinking, yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to that. And then they pulled it out of the gate straight away. First goddamn song, it gave me chills and goosebumps, and hair was standing up on the back of my neck just from the intro. I was like, okay, we're in for a ride here. And so I just kept on going, and every song, one after the other, is just brilliance on top of amazing. And I don't know, it's partly because the production's so raw and natural. It's not really raw, it's just organic and natural.
Yeah.
There's not a goddamn drum sample in sight, and it sounds amazing. It sounds huge. It just sounds like the guys are in a studio just whacking out the stuff that they fucking love, and it's that they captured that on the recording. And that's what is missing from a lot of albums these days, is that kind of like capturing what the band is about. And these guys have nailed it to the floor and the ceiling and the wall and everywhere else. And the fact that they went out to a completely different place from where they live to record it, and then went out in nature and did all that stuff. And then I read when I read that they went into the church and broke in and recorded their intro there, I was like, yes, that's great.
You were just surprised, being where you are, that someone broke into a church to record music and not burned it down.
Right?
Kyle.
Yeah, I was like, what? You broke into a church and you left it standing? But no, I mean, I even completely disagree with Black Harvest being pointless. I loved it. I mean, Graveyard Sun was like a tone down. Black Harvest was a tone down further, but it wasn't so long. It was just a couple of minutes long. And then it just brought you back in right after. I mean, for me. But I mean, the harmonies, it's like Black Sabbath, Queen, Led Zeppelin had a 3-way and gave the bastard baby to Ghost to care for. And then just moved to England. And like...
the most depressing part of that whole analogy there was the move to England at the end. Like, everything else was rad, and then they moved to England.
But I don't know, it's just, it caught me right from the first minute. Like, actually, in the minute, the first, like, the vocal, it repeated the same harrowing line a few times. I was like, okay, come on. But after that, just, that's it. I don't have any criticisms at all. I absolutely love this, front to back, and all the way. I listened to it about 70,000 times. I bought a t-shirt and I pre-ordered the CD. I mean, yeah, it's all right.
Nice. Interesting. Duncan, what about yourself?
This album is not number 1 on Kyle's list at the end of the year. I'm calling bullshit for the amount of times he's used that phrase this year. I remember all these things. I think this is great. I think this is really, really, really great. Very much like yourself, Dave. I remember the previous album. I remember being quite high on that, actually, and thinking, right, we've got a new contender in this kind of British doom scene, which it makes me excited. Yeah. And it's another style of doom, because there's so many. I think sometimes it's very easy and very lazy, and I'm not saying we're being lazy because we're hard-working reviewers, but it's very lazy just to call something doom.
Yeah.
Like doom, it's like saying like death metal. Like death metal has several flavors. Doom has many flavors. It's a genre that's existed for almost as long as metal now. Like the early metal bands were doom forefathers, right? So it's been around longer than thrash and longer than like all these other ones that we think about now. And there are different camps that you can go. You can go into the more extreme side, you can go into the more commercial side, but you can certainly look at the more traditional side, which is where Green Lung sit. They're definitely in the more traditional side. And they wear their influences on their sleeves. And I think that's kind of what's awesome about them. They wear their influences on their green sleeves. See what I do? Check, please. Right, but they really, really do. And I think... Like the phrase that you mentioned, Dave, that I was like, 100% is that it is the leveling up. And it's not to dismiss anything on the previous album, but the previous album did feel like a band kind of trying to find their way around, like kind of getting something out there to get a bit of buzz about it. And the fact it generated as much attention is testament to their fucking hard work, and also to their finger being on the pulse of something that music listeners want to listen to. Svart is the perfect fit. When you look at their roster, it is awash with bands that are in a similar doom-like genre but don't sound anything fucking like them, which is great. Can you imagine seeing Jess and the Ancient Ones and Green Lung tour together? Ooh. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Spank my ass and call me Mary. You know what else? You know, get a little bit of the limit on there as well. Oh my god! Now you're tickling the balls. I can't wait. Literally, that's a great roster of great bands, and it's a perfect fit. And like you say, they could have taken the easy money. Maybe went for a bigger record label. I don't know. Maybe had to compromise on a couple of decisions. Maybe had to change their sound a little bit. Maybe had to force a single out there that didn't sound like what they did. And what they did was they went for the choice, which I believe probably gave them the most say. Yeah. And that's what I want from them, because they're a band that have a very confident sound. Like, you listen to it, they know what they want to sound like. They know how their songs work. I fight back a little bit on what you were saying about like ideas or motifs or rhythms on the guitar coming back. That's doom. That's 70s doom. There are like handfuls and handfuls of Black Sabbath songs which sound like, well, that's the same rhythm. That's just a play on a previous song. I know what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it, but I also think it's kind of...
But they're not just a doom band, though. You know, I wouldn't say they're a doom band. I'd say there's elements of doom, but they've also got bits of, proto metal in there. There's also like kind of traditional heavy metal, psychedelic. So there's lots of different styles and influences. But
but that doesn't always necessarily mean that should be put in every song. I think what I know what you're saying. It just wasn't an issue for me. Like a particular rhythm used again on the guitar, which is just played maybe on slightly different chords, it's fine for me because it fits the song. So I completely hear what you're saying. It just to me isn't a negative. If anything, it feels cohesive to the ideas on the album. It feels like a theme. So it works okay for me. I'm going against Kyle here, and I'm going with Dave, so I'm flip-flopping between the two of yous. They turn the two of yous against each other. To me, Black Harvest is an odd placement on the album. I don't quite get why it's there. To me, it should have come like potentially like either the second last song or the third last song.
I can see
as
that.
A way to build back into it. Although in itself, I really liked the track. I thought it was, as a title track goes, it's not the most memorable song, which once again is flying in the face of how bands tend to do albums.
I love that. I love everything about this band. They're just like, we broke into a church to do our thing on a whim. Our title track is half the length of all the other tracks, and it fucking sucks in comparison. But fuck you.
Yeah, that to me just I think that's there's a lot to like about this one. The big things for me are the guitar work on this is fucking great. Like, riffs are brilliant. They capture that era. They capture the sound. It sounds fucking awesome. And vocally, yes, the previous album was good. This pisses on their previous album from a great height. I just feel he's more confident.
Yeah.
Like, he's more confident to make things sound a lot catchier. I mean, there's plenty of catchy elements on their debut, for sure. But was I humming them 3 days later? No. And that's the difference here. Like, they have nailed it down on this album, front to back. This is a great fucking album. If this does not propel them, to, I'm not going to say superstardom, they'll not be headlining Download next year, but if this doesn't propel them up the next level and gets them on, tours with bigger bands to get more of a say, then I don't genuinely know what you need to do, like, as a band. Like,
could you imagine these guys are Mastodon together? Oh, be fucking
right,
show.
Like, I was thinking about the versatility of their sound.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this before. Like, you get Boss Colloid and Green Lung on a tour together. That's a fucking bitch. Two completely different sounding bands, but two bands that I would equate to. If I was going to see like a gig and those two bands would be on together, I would have the best fucking night ever, because I would be going through like all the shades of 70s inspired music through the 80s, like just like an awash with them. There are plenty of bands that we've mentioned that they could easily be along beside. Once again, they're kind of, at times they remind me Puppy do a lot of this, but Puppy do it in a much more commercial sound. Like, there's something about their production that's much more pristine. But, like, to me, if you're a fan of this sort of music right now, and I know you're going to hate me for mentioning the band again, this is the Ghost effect.
Yeah.
This is what happens when a band like Ghost become as popular as they do. Like, record labels sign bands or bands feel more confident to do it. Now, I'm not saying that they are influenced by Ghost. I'm just saying there is now a preconditioned market out there for this music. And I couldn't be any happier. I honestly wish them all the fucking success in the world. I can't wait to see them live. I know I was joking about England earlier on. Don't mean it, lads. Come to Scotland. But
go to Scotland, not England. I can fly to Scotland.
There's so much to like about it. And it's a great art. This, to me, is one of these ones where you are sitting there going, right, well, they had full control of the previous album. They're now on a label. Let's see what version of the band comes out. And it's their best self that came out. So you can't ask any more than that. These guys are going to have a long fucking career of making me say, I love them.
Me too.
After every album. I was just really happy about it. Like you say, Dave, I think you finish the album, you just feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of albums being released this year that make me feel fucking horrible.
But
and that's
not only that,
last
it's
year,
still heavy as fuck.
You're like, because last year was a shitty year, and a lot of musicians wrote music last year when they were in the middle of a shitty year. These guys have taken it the other way. I would say, I will be surprised if, you know, we don't see a massive uptake in this band, because they fucking earned it. So it's a really, 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 really good album.
Yep. Okay, so ratings for this one from Green Lung. I think we're going to get 3 different scores here, but I think for me it's a very, very hook-laden, fun-filled album. I think the songwriting feels more refined than Woodland Rites, and they've definitely kind of trimmed some of the fat and put more focus on each track having, you know, that kind of hook or melody. A little bit repetitive for me in places, a couple of tracks that weren't quite as strong in the kind of second half of the album, but still really enjoyed it. It's a 4 out of 5 for me. Duncan, what are you thinking?
You're spot on, because I'm going to go just slightly lower than Kyle and also higher than you. So 4.5 for me. I think it's a great fucking album. Yeah. This will get repeated right to the end of the year. I'm leaving that 0.5 because, very much like yourself, I think Black Harvest is an interesting song and has an interesting placement on the album that I don't necessarily get. But it's their fucking album. They get to do whatever they want. I'm reserving my 5 for their next album, which they would have to really fuck up not to get. So,
Kyle, do I need to ask?
Nah. Oh, I'm on the fence. I don't know whether to give it a 5 out of 5 or a 6 out of 5. If you tell me I can give it a 6, I'll give it a 6. I loved it that much. I really did.
6 out of 5.
Yep.
Cool. I was
Dave
funny.
won't change his graphic for that. I'll still come up as 5.
I was reading that after the release of Woodland Rites, the band went on a UK tour with Puppy, actually.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, I can totally see how that would work.
Like, that would be a fucking bitching tour, and the fact that we didn't go and see that is a scathing indictment of our laziness, Dave.
It is, it really is.
Laziness and age.
This one drops on October 22nd on Svart Records. Be sure to check this one out. We've all really enjoyed the album. If you want to check them out, facebook.com/greenlungband. If you're checking this out on YouTube, links below in the description. And let us know what you think of the album. If you've heard any of the singles, once you've heard the album, let us know. That is the review.
Reaper's